Hi, and welcome to another episode of Straight Out of Camera, proudly sponsored by Fujifilm South Africa. Joining me live in studio today is Managing Editor of TechSmart.co.za, Mike Kubert. Mike, how are you doing, sir?
All good, Esley. How are you?
Do I sound like the Cell C voice? Mike, I just want to chat to you today. We're speaking to a very inspirational photographer from Cape Town. But how important is it today to actually create opportunities for yourself, not just, go and create a social media platform sort of on different... No, let's try that again.
Okay. That's going well.
Yeah, I know, but then I started thinking about it and then it didn't go natural. So, Mike, today I want to chat to you about, the photographer we are featuring today, where things don't just get to you, you've got to go to it. And, the perception of just creating your brand on social media channels these days are probably not just the only thing you've got to do. You've got to really hustle and get your name out there. What do you think about that?
Well, I think with such a large number of photographers doing work, yes, for sure. I think you have to kind of like get your contacts up and running, try and get jobs wherever you can, and perhaps also not always being picky about what you're shooting, isn't it?
Yeah, and also, just trying the whole time. I mean, we spoke about, my growing up and how I loved cricket, and I was bowling hours and hours a day just to get it perfected. And the same way, I think we need to put our energy into photography and sort of try and error until you get it to the space where you need to be.
Well, I think for a lot of photographers, they love photography first and foremost. It's not a position like, for example, I don't want to say all accountants don't like their job, but, it's not something that's like, I don't feel passionate about it. Most photographers do. Perhaps not after shooting X amount of corporate events, but, for the most part, we love photography.
But you also get a situation where you think you are great in what you do and you are wanting to be a photographer, and then it's a pain to actually just pick up a camera every now and then.
Well, I think for a number of people, they have realized this. It becomes boring, it becomes monotonous. Also, the thing is, we've spoken to other photographers before who told us you do have to have passion projects. You have to have those things that you do on the side, perhaps, planning for an exhibition or doing a certain amount of, special work just for yourself.
Yeah, and lighting in general. I mean, we've had several photographers that specialize in strobe-based sort of photography, but the message that always came out is that you need to first understand natural light before even trying to attempt strobe-based lighting. And with regards to sort of shooting natural and strobist type of lighting setups, we've had quite a few photographers in here that said you need to first shoot natural light, understand shadows and highlights before even trying to attempt strobist photography.
Well, I think strobist is definitely next level. I think there's two things you can do to lift your game in photography. Number one is learn Lightroom and Photoshop. Learn how to edit those photos. Those photos, look at any picture online, and the thing is, it's going to be edited for sure. And then secondly is learn how to shoot with off-camera flash and strobes or strobist. Lindsey Appolis is a self-taught photographer living and working in Cape Town. He had the guts to quit his corporate job at an investment firm to take on photography full-time, a decision he has not regretted since. Lindsey has documented life in the colored community, done fashion shoots, and captured his travels in places such as Japan. Lindsey, welcome to the Straight Out of Camera podcast.
Thank you.
I wanted to ask you, you have a quite interesting story to tell in regards to how you started off in photography, shooting horses at a racecourse, right?
Yes. This was many years ago. I was in high school and I needed a job, and my dad was working on the racecourse, and he said, "Well, just come in and test with us." And so, what we would do is we'd get those were film cameras at the time. And I actually didn't know anything about aperture or shutter speed or anything. So the manager he would set the camera up for you. He'd say, "Here's the camera. Go and stand and take photos of the horses while they're running." And it would be published in a publication called Computer Form every week. But I mean, I had no idea about the technicalities of the camera, but what it did was put a camera in my hand, and I like the feeling of it, and I like kind of what it, when I put it to my face, and what I saw was a lot more interesting than kind of without it, if it makes sense. And so that's kind of where I guess it started for me, just like with my first camera.
There's an interview you did with Between 10 and 5, the website, and there's a quote in there that says, "The world just made more sense when I picked up a camera." Is that in referring to what happened in your corporate job or just life in general?
Yeah, so to talk about that, I think I need to go back to my childhood. And when I was young, I watched a lot of TV. My mother allowed me to watch as much TV as I wanted, which is bad, I guess, but good at the same time, because I saw the world in that little box, and it was beautiful to me. And so I think when I went out, I wanted to see the world like that all the time, and that's why the world, and I did, I think, I guess, and that then kind of was something that led me to kind of see the world that I did and help me in my photography.
I think that's an incredible story, because I know that Annie Leibovitz, her family was traveling a lot from town to
Base
town.
to base.
Yeah. And she saw the world through a car window. And that's how she started composing images. I mean, from seeing it through a car window.
Yeah. So I mean, I guess if you look at my work, there's a cinematic element to it, on how I shoot things. And I often crop it to a 69 ratio, because for the most part, that's kind of what my life was about. It was looking at a TV screen and seeing the world in that little square box, or that 69 frame, or when you go to the movies. So what we would do is a group of friends, we would walk from my house to the cinema, which is like about 1.5 kilometers away from the house, every Saturday. We'd watch a double feature, and that's our Saturdays. It doesn't matter what's playing at the cinema. It was a routine for us to go there and watch movies all the time. And we really fell in love, even though it was largely B-rate American movies. It was some of it was beautifully shot, and that just kind of stuck with me and some of my friends as well.
You did a lot of street photography in some of the places in Cape Town, as well as in and around the colored community. How did this happen?
Yes.
Was it something that you naturally picked up?
Well, the thing is, I needed to. I mean, so I guess I need to talk about kind of the access that I have. When I started out, I had a camera. I bought a camera on my first. I think I was traveling to Thailand at the time, and in Thailand I bought a camera, and so I came back home, and I wanted to use the camera. But I obviously didn't have access to, at that time, I didn't have access to studios or anything like that. So I didn't know how to go about any of those processes. What I did know was my sort of the life in my old neighborhood was very vibrant to me. And I thought, well, let's go and try that first. And so what I would do is I'd go to my old neighborhood where my mom lives, and just shoot around there and find interesting things to look at. And then it kind of spread out. I would go into the city and start shooting in the city. And then social media came about. I started posting the work, and then people were interested in that. And then I was like, well, cool. If you're interested in this, can I come to your community and shoot there and find some interesting stories? And that's kind of how that thing led to my street work, and I guess I've always had a thing where I wanted to tell stories, which was important to me.
Looking at your Instagram handle, there's a lot of different genres being predicted. I mean, you've got sort of the fitness world, you've got some very nice pole dancing images, you've got a lot of dancing. Is dancing quite an important thing for you?
Oh, yes. Dancing is a very, very important thing to me. I'm a former dancer myself. Okay. I danced for, I don't know, about 15, 20 years. So how that started was I was a break dancer on the street as a kid. And then, that progressed for a couple of years. I then met my girlfriend, now wife, my then girlfriend, now wife. She then introduced me to contemporary dance. And she said, well, come and do a class with us. And I went in and I did a contemporary class. It was as clumsy as they come, but I absolutely loved it. And so then I joined that dance school. I danced there for many years. and I've had a love for dance. And I think it also helps with my dance photography because I have an understanding of what the dancer feels or what the movement should feel like for the dancer and when it's at its peak, and when it looks good.
Yeah,
So
that is my next question. I mean, we've got a guy, Tim Willman, who's a skateboard photographer,
yes,
and he knows exactly when the trick is going to get hit, and he makes sure that he composes for that. So he actually sees it beforehand. Do you have a similar
yes,
experience?
I do, because so I discuss it with the dancer and say like, this is kind of what I want to feel, and then we'll try it out, and then and I think more often than not, I kind of heat it in the first 2 or 3 shots. It's like, cool, we get it, because I know, like with Tim, like you said with Tim, I kind of can see already what the apex of that movement's going to be and when it's going to be, which I'm lucky with, I guess, or yeah.
These images that you capture, is it during performances or is it like backstage, or not backstage, but during practice, for example? When do you set these up?
So lots. I mean, it's a variety of things. So there are some where I've, if it allows, I like to shoot a technical run, but then we can make sure that everybody has makeup on. So it's a full run, and then we shoot if it allows. But a lot of the times, no, it doesn't allow. So we just shoot. I shoot during performances. But that's the beauty, and that's the beauty of the camera again. I think with the X-T2, being a silent camera, I can shoot the full performance, no stress. I mean, like I've actually sat in the audience and shot, and the people next to me have been like, they actually weren't aware that I was shooting, even though the camera was up and I was going for it. But because they can't hear a single thing, it's like, I could shoot the entire performance without any stress.
One thing that I'm quite interested in is your work documenting shooting on certain film sets, which is, for example, The Forgiven with Forrest Whitaker and Eric Bana. Numai Scholar you worked on, and now also the new movie coming out pretty soon. I'm not sure if it's out there, number 37, nummer 37.
Yes, it was released yesterday, yeah.
Okay, cool. So how did this come about? How do you set this up? And what's the things to look for when doing these types of movie shoots?
Okay, so I think for me it was, again, and I go back to kind of my love for film, and I kind of wanted to get involved somehow. And with anything, you kind of just need to be knocking on as many doors as you can. So I think I started out shooting student films back in the day. Like friends of mine were in the film industry, and they said, well, they were starting to be filmmakers, and they were like, well, come and shoot. If you want to come and shoot, you can come and shoot. And I took that opportunity. You have to take the opportunities that come your way and make the most of them. And so I shot on a variety of kind of short films and ads and music videos. And then, you do that work, you put it out there, people hear about it, and then I got contacted for other films, like and the project get bigger and bigger every time. So it's great in that, like it's kind of an organic growth to the process. So that's how I kind of got onto film sets, basically through word of mouth, and I got to work on some amazing features.
I think that's a very important factor. I mean, I think that a lot of millennials, they've got no concept of hustle, and it looks like you've been hustling quite a lot, and it's something to be appreciated. I think people tend to think these days things just fall on your lap, and you don't have to work hard to get there.
Thank you. So if I can talk about that quickly. So the hustle for me is a very important thing, and it goes back to my corporate days. So I was in a job where I was quite unhappy, and the job wasn't meant for me. And I think when I quit my job, I wanted to. I was going to make sure that I was never, ever going to have to go back to doing anything like that. And the only way you can do that is by hustling. You can't just like shoot and say like, well, I'm going to shoot something and it's going to be cool and everybody's going to love it. And then I'm going to be amazing. And then people are going to want to use me for everything. It's a case of you have to shoot every kind of scenario you can think of, work as hard as you possibly can, put the work out there, and be diligent in how you do it, create a process for yourself. And then things will happen, but it is lots and lots and lots of hard work.
Yeah.
How important is it building up contacts?
Oh, it's well, I mean, as a it's extremely important, I think. I mean, so if you build a good rapport with your client, that client has other clients, who has friends, who has clients, who has friends, who has clients. So building up contacts for and building up contacts for certain things, like I have. So I have a group of people I can always call up for if I need makeup artists, if I need stylists, or if I need equipment or whatever I need. So building up that kind of network of people to assist you, and then you can assist them, so that we can. It's a micro and a macro thing in that you build yourself up, but also you build up the entire industry by building up by contacts, by creating networks of people, so that everybody can kind of like sort of get something out of the deal, and the entire industry can grow from that.
Looking at your Instagram feed over at Appster with your handle, it seems like you have done a lot of different types of photography. Where did you study? Are you self-taught? How did things kick off for you?
Yeah, so I didn't study. I'm self-taught, and so the story. So how it goes is that in 2008, my son was born, and so if I go back again to we first got the camera on the race course. I shot there. I quit my job at I think a year or so later, and then I never picked up a camera again until 2008, when we traveled to Thailand. I bought a camera, and I thought, well, here's an opportunity because my son, because I actually don't have many photographs of myself as a child, and I thought, well, I'm not gonna allow that to happen to him. I want him to remember his childhood. I want him to kind of like know how it was and be able to have lots of fond memories of what the images that he'll see. And so I started shooting him first, and I knew what I wanted to do, but I didn't know how to do it. And I literally just like messed around with the settings on the camera. Every single setting, I was like, cool, this does this. Okay, and then over time, you'd kind of figure out, what is what, and then you'd also go and read up on what f-stops are, what aperture, what apertures, what the aperture means to you, you kind of figure out what the triangle means to you as a photographer, and that's kind of over time. So I taught myself what the technical things on the camera is, and then I kind of just shot a lot. I mean, like when I say I shot a lot, it's an understatement, because I was obsessive over the craft and how to kind of get better at what I wanted.
You can see it through your lighting setups. I mean, I've not seen a handle with such diverse types of light.
Yeah.
You a true strobist, my man, and we don't give a lot of compliments in this
Wow.
in this podcast. But your understanding of light, how did that come about?
So I think, well, I'm gonna say that I think it's quite a natural thing to me, in that this is how. So you are seeing how I see the world.
Okay.
I see the world in those light and those shadow, and I see the differential between the two, and it's weird how it speaks to me. I always thought, like, I always had this thing where I thought, when we all wake up, we all see the world exactly the same way, because it's the same world. We all live here. We all wake up. We see the same light. But I didn't realize that I actually do see things a little bit differently to most people. And so what you see in my Instagram is exactly how I see the light. So if that makes sense.
Totally. But what sort of mechanism did you use? Because, I mean, speed lights and off-camera flash is quite difficult to master. Is it just trial and error? Is it just practicing a lot? What sort of gave you the education you require to be able to take these incredible images?
So I first moved from natural lighting. Like I only shot with natural light, whatever was available. And looking at the natural light, like you kind of understand what the natural light source is, where it's coming from. And so I thought to myself, well, if that natural light is coming from there, if I use a light to do the same thing, and it was literally just trial and error, figuring out if I put a light there, what it does, tutorials, going online, seeing other people do what they're doing, and then testing it out, see if it works. And so it's literally a case of like a little bit of my understanding, a lot of practice and trial and error.
You spoke at the Design in Durban a couple of years ago, and this is what you said. The reality of the colored people is gangsterism, violence, and poverty. There's no way to erase this from the stories we tell. When we've told all of these stories, we can start telling the story of a new nation, a new people. Are these stories being told?
So I definitely think the stories are being told. I mean, if you look at, I think if you look at the one film I did, No Collie, it was kind of a story of a man, gangsterism, violence, all of that things. And then now, if you look at the film Norma 37, it's a purest crime thriller, not speaking about gangsterism. There's no gangsters in the movie. There's nothing like that. It's about kind of life on the Cape Flats itself. So gradually we are moving away from kind of just telling the stories of gang violence and that. But I do think that it'll come in and out until eventually, like I said, we will tell all those stories, and then we can kind of move on to stories that are a lot more current, a lot more kind of like now. I am working on a production later this year that's going to be an action film, a big kind of action film set in Cape Town, which I think will be amazing.
Are you in touch with documentary photographers doing work on the Cape Flats and the colored community? Can you recommend a couple of people?
So I'm part of a collective called the Real City of Cape Town, and on there is quite a few documentary photographers kind of shooting either for news agencies or kind of themselves or for international agencies as well. And so they are documenting kind of everyday life in Cape Town, and I think that's a great platform to check out.
Where can we get you on social media as well as the internet, Lindsey?
Okay, cool. So so firstly my Instagram handle, which is Appster, this is APPSTER, and my Twitter is also Appster01. I have a Facebook page called MIP by Lindsey Appolis, which stands for My Imperfect Perception by Lindsey Appolis, and I have a